All right, welcome to the live. This is our first live actually on YouTube from my laptop, so I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to get the other stream going here and start the conversation up. Okay, welcome to the live. We're getting things up and running here at the Rocket Flat, my little oasis from the world. Let me make sure that this is live. Are we live? Yeah. All right. So we're getting a few people joining in. Our topic today is the roots of Ashtanga and Rocket Yoga. And my name's Amber Jean, and I'm going to be leading these lectures and discussions. It's a rainy day here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I have really curly hair, so I wanted to wear a hat today, something a little different. But yeah, so we're going to start to talk about the roots. We're live on YouTube and Rocket Yoga Academy. And once again, the topic is the roots of Ashtanga Yoga and Rocket. And I don't know if I can add that on the Instagram here. Let's see here. Let's see. Roots of Ashtanga and Rocket Yoga. Okay. All right. So we're getting things up and running. And yeah, so, I had the experience of practicing yoga when Patabi Joyce was still alive. And Patabi Joyce was originally the one that brought Ashtanga yoga to the United States. And a lot of people currently that are getting into yoga, I've realized they don't even know the term Ashtanga yoga and what Ashtanga yoga means. Ashtanga yoga is an 8-limbed path. And the first limbs are kind of similar, just ethical observations for yourselves, yamas and niyamas. And then we get into asana and pranayama, okay? And so this is really the heart of all the more modern forms of yoga that you're seeing today, okay? Most modern forms of yoga, let me make sure this camera's clean. Most modern forms of yoga have sprouted from Ashtanga yoga, okay? And Ashtanga yoga is a moving and breathing system, and it has very specific sequences. And you're meant to do those sequences over and over again until you get them correct, depending on your teacher. So when I first started practicing yoga, Patabi Joyce was still alive. I never got to practice with Patabi, but I did practice with his direct students. And we mostly practiced primary series. I never had, I was in the beginning young, very young, very young, very young. And I did receive some of the more harder adjustments from Ashtanga yoga teachers. So, and so I have had that experience. Okay. And then I had the experience of meeting Larry Schultz. Okay. Meeting Larry Schultz in San Francisco and learning the rocket. And what Larry did is he took the Ashtanga sequence, he resequenced the poses, and he changed the philosophy. Okay. So in the rocket system, in the Larry Schultz system, it's 2 finger adjustments. Okay. Two finger adjustments. And so, let me fix this. There we go. So we're getting a lot of storms today here in Cincinnati. It's like coming out from the west. There was tornadoes, so it's a little stormy. It's a little stormy, but it looks like it's clearing up a little bit right now. Okay. So now we're talking about Larry Schultz, okay? So Larry Schultz, he changed the philosophy of the Ashtanga yoga practice, okay? So in the beginning, the philosophy is you have to master one pose before you can go into the next pose. And Larry wanted to bring advanced poses to beginners, okay? So that's what he started to do is he started to change the sequence, okay, and bring advanced poses to beginners, okay? And when we're talking about advanced poses, we're not just talking about handstands. We're talking about elbow stands. I'm just kidding. We are talking actually about elbow stands, but we're also talking about some of the flexibility poses that you see in rocket. We're talking about Hanumanasana, Samokhanasana, and this is another reason I want to start doing these lives is because newer yoga instructors, this is all things that I'm finding out just from talking to people. I talk to a lot of people about yoga. Every time I go out, I talk to people about yoga. And the newer teachers, a lot of them, and even people that are just trying to figure out what kind of yoga to do, and they go, what kind of yoga do you instruct? And I say Ashtanga. And that just is like so foreign to them because it's such a small niche. Okay. But really, if you want to become a good, in my opinion, okay, especially if you want to teach any type of vinyasa flow styles of yoga, you should be adaptive, at least knowing what the primary series is. And you should at least know the history of how this yoga came into the United States. So it started with Ashtanga. And that's our topic today is the roots of Ashtanga and rocket yoga. Okay. So when Larry came along, Larry wanted to change the sequence and make things more accessible. Okay. And that's what he started to do. He created routines called modified primary, and that was a real beginner's routine that it was very accessible during my teacher training. So having that experience of, learning traditional Ashtanga and then Rocket. And when I started practicing Rocket, I was just practicing right in a Rocket 2 as a brand new practitioner. And I just thought, oh, this is how you learn yoga. So I was exposed to what we would call the more advanced poses at a very young age. I was very young and I couldn't do anything. Okay. When I started practicing Ashtanga, I remember just, the Chaturanga Dandasanas were very challenging. And let me see here on the chat. Yeah, someone's asking about my training. I took my training in 2000. And so our topic today is the roots of Ashtanga and Rocket if you're just joining in. So I was, going right into a Rocket practice as a beginner. And so when I met Larry and I saw the differences between Ashtanga yoga and Rocket, I kind of started to veer towards the Rocket practice more. I really liked the philosophy of the more gentle two finger adjustments. And the two finger adjustments were really meant to help prevent injury. So some people think that adjustments are for getting deeper in poses, but if you're adjust properly, and this is what I specialize in now because I've been teaching for so long, is how I use my hands when I teach. And the more, if you're a newer teacher, the more you teach, the more you'll know where to touch somebody. And so with Larry, it was, learning the two finger adjustments. And so that was the roots of the Rocket. I mean, you can take two fingers on the shoulders. You can roll the shoulders back with two fingers. And 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 then what drew me to the Rocket is I came to the practice very weak. Okay. I couldn't do headstands. I couldn't do handstands. I thought my arms were going to break if I did these more advanced poses. And so what Larry did is he started to put in more strength moves. Okay, he started to layer in more supportive movements like Pilates and cross training movements. Okay. And these movements would help you get stronger. Okay. So that's really what I liked the most about Rocket. And so, you really want to learn if you're a new instructor, okay? And you want to learn where all this stuff came from, okay? All these styles of yoga that you see out there, you can trace them back to the Ashtanga yoga lineage, okay? Patabi Joyce, because we're talking about the topic, the history. Patabi Joyce was discovered he was teaching in India, and some people from Europe traveled to India and they studied with him. And then we could even go further back, but then they brought him to Europe to start to teach. And eventually Patabi Joyce was brought to Texas, okay? And that was the first sprouting up of what you see the very beginnings of American yoga is when Patabi Joyce came here, and I believe in the 70s. There was just a very small group of people that were studying with him, and Larry Schultz was one of them. Okay. And so the roots of the rocket, Larry's original teacher was a man named Stan Hafner. And Stan lived in Austin, Texas. And Stan was the one who brought Patabi Joyce over here. Okay. So I want to start opening these discussions up because a lot of newer yoga instructors are missing the foundation. Okay. And so that's really what I specialize in, is teaching everybody, giving everybody a strong foundation. Once you have the foundation and you understand what Ashtanga yoga is, and you understand the proper placement of the hands, of the feet in Ashtanga, then that's going to give you freedom to vary it. And that's what Larry Schultz began to do. And so Larry Schultz's rocket, it was meant to be creative. It was meant to be function over form. And so in Ashtanga yoga, we're talking a lot about form, okay? Getting the perfect form. In rocket yoga, we're talking about getting your body functioning. The original rocket was meant to be a therapeutic approach to Ashtanga. It was meant to be a modified version of Ashtanga. And I really don't pay attention to new rocket. I am talking about the original rocket, okay? So let's omi omi. Om 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 om. So I'm talking about the original rocket, okay? The original rocket. So we're talking about roots of Ashtanga and rocket. The original rocket was a part of the It's Yoga system, okay? And so we really need to go back and learn about the whole system, okay? So, on my on-demand training, you will learn the whole system. I have the whole system in my manual. Okay. All right. So if anybody has any questions, I want you to jump in. This is our first live that I'm doing in this way. I've been wanting to do these for a long time. And, and yoga is really about letting your practice evolve over time. Okay. And so, going back to the roots of the rocket. Okay. So Larry, he was on tour with the Grateful Dead, and he was traveling around with them, teaching them yoga. And he started to play with the different sequences. So when Larry was on tour, he was playing with the sequences, and Larry had a vision, okay, to become a yoga instructor without being authorized from Patabi Joyce. That's what really happened, is because when Larry was getting started, or when Larry was that original group that was in Austin, Texas. Okay. That original group, when Patabi Joyce left, everybody was looking around and they were like, well, who's going to teach? And they're like, I'm not going to teach. Who's going to teach? And Larry was like, I'm going to teach. Okay. And anyhow, so Larry said he was going to teach. And they were like, you can't teach. You can't teach. And he's like, why not? Why can't I teach? Why not? And that was really kind of the beginnings of the Rocket. Okay. The beginnings of the Rocket started in San Francisco. And in the very beginning, Larry Schultz had just a piece of paper on his front door saying that he offered yoga classes, Ashtanga yoga classes. And, and so even though, when I went to San Francisco and was learning the Rocket from Larry, even though we weren't practicing, obviously we were practicing Rocket, but we were calling Rocket Ashtanga yoga. Okay. And this is a big Larry Schultz thing, was that he was saying that we consider this Ashtanga yoga because our definition of Ashtanga yoga is a science of sequencing poses while observing oneself through breath, bandha, and drishti. Okay. And so, I really want these discussions to open up so newer teachers can become properly trained and learn the lineage, learn the foundations, learn where all this stuff has come from. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, just jump on in. This is the first one, so we're gonna gotta get it going. And so this is the yoga off the mat, and and I would like to start doing these lives. I've been talking about it for a while, and now we're making it happen. We're making these lives happen. Okay. So anyhow, so while Larry was on tour, he started playing with the sequences. And that was really when he was teaching it to Bobby Weir of the Grateful Dead. And Bobby said he loved the routine. Larry says, what are we going to call it? And Bobby says, the Rocket. That's one of the more famous stories that you might have heard. Okay. And so Bobby Weir named it the Rocket originally. And why? Because it gets you there faster. Okay. So what I'm doing in my trainings now is the Emersons Rocket training. And so the Emersons is a reflection of, we need to go back to making sure that everybody has somewhat of an understanding of traditional Ashtanga yoga, and then the foundations of Rocket. Okay. So then, if we want to keep talking about the history, then things evolve. And that's a big part of nature, is change is going to be the only constant. And so we're evolving. Okay. And so then the Rocket evolved at my studio and became Bottle Rocket and Medicine Rocket. Bottle Rocket is the 1 hour version. And I just, went through all this with talking to some people that are taking my on-demand training, is, how much stuff can you take out and it still be Rocket? How much stuff should you put in? And how creative can you get? Right. So those are some big questions that everybody has. And in the bottle rocket is, we need to go, and every bottle rocket, I want to see the two dolphins in the elbow stands, and I want to see those rocket splits. So, those are some of the elements that are kind of non-negotiable, because that to me is the spirit of the rocket, and also the core work. Okay. Um, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to DM me. We're really just starting to scratch the surface. Okay, we're just scratching the surface of having these lectures. Okay, so that's why I'm just going to be doing these regularly, because there's endless topics to talk about. Especially, I've been in yoga for 26 years, and we could take the history of Ashtanga back to. We need to say his name before I get off this live. Anybody know it? Krishnamacharya. So let's say it 3 times. Krishnamacharya, Krishnamacharya, Krishnamacharya. Krishnamacharya is the one that started this all, okay? He really is the father of yoga, okay? The father of yoga, Krishnamacharya. And so he was the one that was Patabi Joyce's teacher. And, he was the one. So, I want to talk in a positive light about the Ashtanga practice. And I want to remember our roots. And I want everybody to be inspired, that Ashtanga and Rocket can be healthy practices for different times of your life. But the teachers, it's not about the teacher. This is where Larry's philosophy really has come out, is it's not about the teacher. It's about the inner teacher. Okay. So sometimes Larry, he would often encourage us to warm up on our own with the sun salutations, because he didn't want us to be dependent on him for, looking outside of ourselves, right? You're going to be looking outside yourself if you're in the yoga room and you're waiting for an adjustment. Okay. Ooh, little tickle pickle. All right. And so, we need to, I want to bring things back around to that, the Ashtanga Rocket and my Emerson's program, Emerson's Rocket, which is what I'm doing now, is Emerson's Vinyasa, is the evolution of Ashtanga and Rocket. And it's kind of my special little routines that I've been developing, because I've had 18 years of running my own studio, and I teach 10 classes a week. Okay. So I know it works. And I know how to get people stronger. And that's what I do. But the touching, the history of the touching in Ashtanga, at first it was very harsh adjustments, laying on people, putting people's leg behind their head. I don't take any church class. I don't study from any Ashtanga teachers. I don't need that right now. I don't know if I'll ever go back, because I'm pretty happy with my personal practice. And the newer teachers, I want to inspire you to learn Sanskrit. I want to inspire you to learn the Ashtanga yoga invocation. I want to inspire you to learn all the pranayamas. I want to inspire you to know what pranayama is. I want to inspire you to know what the terminologies are, because it is like having another language, okay? So I'm going to log off. We did 30 minutes today. This is the first one. So getting this up and running. And I just wish you all the best. Reach out anytime. On the YouTube, my on-demand training is in the comments. The first link in the comments. And be well. Namaste. Oops. Let me stop this. Here we go. End stream. First one. Woo woo!